I'm very excited to be watching Maybe This Time. I'm currently watching, well, I've just got to the end of every Betty White film, and that is actually almost true. There are two very bizarre underwater animations that I'm waiting to arrive from eBay, and then I've watched all of her films. So I've moved on to her TV shows, and one of those is Maybe This Time, and I had never heard of this before. So I went in with no knowledge. And I'm pleased to say the first episode is a joy. I have actually watched a couple of episodes after this, so maybe some of my opinions are affected by a few future episodes, but in general, I will try and keep my views to just this initial first episode experience. There will be spoilers as I go through the events of the episode chronologically and share some thoughts. The first episode is called Please Re-Lease Me. This is directed by David Trainer, and the show has a cast including, of course, Betty White, who plays Shirley. Marie Osmond plays her daughter Julia. We also have Ashley Johnson playing Julia's daughter Gracie. We also have Amy Hill as Kay and Craig Ferguson as Logan. And I don't think it was in this episode. I won't talk about future episodes too much, but there is a future episode where Logan repeatedly refers to Aberdeen, and me being an Aberdonian, I found that to be quite delightful. This episode starts off with Shirley handling negotiations for their coffee shop because the family owns this coffee shop. And as a setting, I really like it. I think the set design is really quite nice. And Julia actually steps in to handle it instead, as she says that Shirley has some potentially questionable tactics that Julia doesn't agree with. Shall we say some very flirtatious tactics? We get a good introduction to the family dynamics with Shirley and Julia, and then Julia's daughter Gracie. I feel like the characters were introduced really well. Definitely get a good sense of who they are, the family dynamic, the coffee shop that they own, where they work. I think everything was introduced really, really well. And then the narrative moves forward when Julia kind of screws up the negotiations. And we also get a real first taste of the comedy style, or some of the comedy style, as this was going to be part of Shirley's negotiation tactic because she didn't realise Julia had stepped in. And she walks out of the door dressed as Little Bo Peep, which is an absolute joy. And the reveal there was really funny, really thoroughly enjoyed it. The costume is fabulous. Betty White looked brilliant. We then get some brief time with Gracie, as she keeps mentioning she doesn't have a bike. I love her attitude. This is something that I've maintained as I've watched future episodes. I really, really like the character. She reminds me of a character from another sitcom, and I cannot think of which character. I can't think of who I'm thinking of. So if she reminds you of anybody, do let me know, because it's irritating that I can't work out who that is. We then spend some more time with Kay and Logan. I think I forgot to mention we briefly get an introduction to Kay, Jennifer and Logan. That introduction wasn't actually the best. The scene felt a little out of place. That introduction didn't feel quite right. But then, as I said, we do learn about Kay and Logan a little bit later. And this all takes place in the coffee shop. It's quite a nice size. In some way, it's quite a large space, but the layout lends itself well to more intimate scenes, and I think it worked really well. We get some good character close-ups at the counter, but we also have moving around to the different tables, and I think they've done a really good job with the set design. The landlord's daughter then arrives, and Julia is trying to talk with her again because the rent was previously raised. That's Julia's tactic not working. And it seems like the landlord's daughter is actually on Julia's side. The rent increase was far too steep. That's not how it should be. No, she ends up raising it by another 500. And in a way, her logic makes sense. This is because they haven't had a rent increase for many years. So the rent increase, yes, it was steep, but had they had a steady increase, it actually should have been much bigger. And of course, this is what the landlord's daughter figures out. So Logan bends over and shows his butt. Not his actual butt, he has his clothes on, but apparently that tactic was going to work. And then the episode ends with Gracie almost bending over, the way Logan did, in front of a kid whose father owns the bike shop. He obviously gets family discount. She's thinking, I'll bend over to get family discount. And I did, for a split second, feel genuine concern, as I honestly thought they were going to sexualise this child, but they didn't. That wasn't the joke. It would be a very tasteless joke. The joke was actually how Gracie responded when she was told to not do that, so I'm pleased that it went in that direction. As an introduction, as a first episode, it's really solid. As I said, we get a really good sense of the family dynamic. We meet all of the main characters, and the coffee shop itself is a nice environment. We get to explore that quite well, and as I said, we get a nice taste of what a lot of the comedy is actually going to be like. And I have watched maybe 4 or 5 more episodes after this, and I think I'm at the stage where I want to watch just one more episode. And unfortunately, there are not many episodes. There are, I think, only 18. So I don't know why. I haven't explored why it was not commissioned for more. I don't want to look too much into it in case I get any spoilers. I will look into that once I finish watching it. But either way, the first episode is great. I can confirm that several episodes after are also great. Maybe this time is pretty promising, and the first episode is pretty brilliant.